People have asked me, are water moisture meters any good on tracks? I'm lying. Nobody's ever asked me that, but I'm going to tell you the answer anyway. So much so, I went to a lot of trouble to buy a water moisture meter to show how rubbish they are. That's basically what you get there. That reads that way up. And it turned out it was so rubbish it wasn't even good enough to do the demonstration with. So I've had to come up with an alternative arrangement, which is a standard multimeter connected to some homemade probes there to put into the samples. Now what the multimeter measures is resistance. What a moisture meter measures is also resistance. It measures electrical resistance of whatever you put the prongs into. It's a simple way of measuring water content, but unfortunately it's also extremely unreliable. It's influenced by many things. We're doing these tests live. I don't know what the results are going to be, but it's quite possible it's going to be influenced by the compaction of the sand. It's going to be influenced by the type of water that you use, because water has impurities in it. It will certainly be dramatically influenced by the salt content. If you add salt to your track, it's going to completely change the readings. Also moisture meters have to be calibrated for the things they're being used on. May be influenced by temperature, I don't know, we're not going to look at that today. Is there any point in having a moisture meter anyway? We've already talked about the fact that when you put water into sand, it absorbs water to the level of about 25% and holds onto that. Anything over that will drain. So if you put water onto a well-trained track, you know very well that the water content of that track is 25%. You don't need a meter to tell you that. I think that's actually quite important, really. And not only that, it doesn't really matter what the water content of the sand is. What actually matters is how that sand is behaving, whether it's a safe track. The sort of extension of that is, can you correlate what your water meter says with what the track is doing? If you know that the water meter says, moisture meter says 20%, do you know that that track is going to be dangerous? I suspect most times you don't. Okay, now the point with resistance, it is measured in ohms. It's a measure of how well a sample conducts electricity. The higher the value, the poorer that sample conducts electricity, the lower the water content. Put it the other way around, the lower the value of the resistance, the more water is in the sample, the better it conducts electricity. Firstly then, is the reading going to be influenced by the type of water that you're using? Well, yes, in short it is, but that's because pure water is not a particularly good conductor of electricity. Most water has impurities in it, which makes it a good conductor. This is tap water, Severn Trent's finest here in Gloucestershire. I think they take it out of the River Severn at Tewkesbury. Getting a reading there around about the 2. It varies as you leave the probes in, because you get a chemical reaction around the probes. So that's about 1.6. That's measured in kilo ohms at the moment. This is a bottle of Scotland's finest mineral water. That's heading towards the same sort of value. It's actually going down lower than that now, 1.5, 1.4, 1.2, 1.1. Not a drastic difference, but it does show that the type of water that you're using is going to influence your readings. Let's do sand compaction. This is a sample of sand with that magic 25% value of water added. That's the saturation point of sand. Don't forget, the lower the reading on the meter, the higher the conductance, the more moisture is in the sand sample. So this isn't compacted at all, so we just put that into the sand there. Again, we're measuring a much higher reading on the sand there. This, as I say, is 25% weight by weight. So we're reading about 46.4, something in that area. I'm making notes on this because, as I say, this is live. 46.4, okay, or around about that area anyway, and that's uncompacted. Okay, let's just compact that down and see if it makes any difference at all. It may not. As I say, we've not done these tests, we don't know. Give that a good squashing down. Okay, try that again. Slightly awkward because it's no longer deep enough to cover the probes, which is what we did before. So to make it a fair comparison, we need to do that again. See, I told you it was completely unrehearsed. You'd never guess, would you? Okay, quite a drastically different reading when you compact the sand down. Now, admittedly, we've gone from one extreme to the other. We've gone from quite well compacted to from very well harrowed sand to quite well compacted. But that reading is now around about the 1.92, 1.9 to 2, drastically different reading. So, you know, can you believe your moisture meter? Well, so far, obviously not. That again is k-ohms, kilo-ohms, and as I say, that would be translated by a moisture meter based on a calibration to be converted to water content. Now, if you don't believe me with any of these results, I strongly suggest that you actually do these tests with your own moisture meter in the comfort of your own home. But to be honest, I would have one of these ready. This is a rubbish bin, and you'll be needing it for the moisture meter after you've done the tests. Okay, so let's look at water content now, see what that does. This again is a sample of sand, but this is the same sand we just used, but completely dry. So I'm going to put the probes into that there. As you can see, reading a high resistance, no value at all on that. I might just change the range on the multimeter. In fact, I'll let it have free range by turning hold off. Okay, and that's on its highest range, so that reads in megohms now. That's millions of ohms. We were looking at thousands of ohms when we had a reading of 40 or 2. That was thousands of ohms, a much lower value. Again, that's recording a higher moisture content. So it's not reading at all. There's no moisture in it. It's not surprising it's not reading. Sand is basically glass. Glass is used as an insulator in industry. Some of the pylons have glass insulators on them. So what we're going to do now, we're going to add 5% water to that. That's not that much water, so it's going to be difficult to make sure it mixes in well, but we'll see what we can do. 5% in this case is about 31 grams. Okay. All right then, so that reads 31 grams. Quick stir. As I say, it's going to be quite difficult to mix 31 grams in because there's not really enough to spread out the whole sample. It's only when you start to get to about the 10% level, which, as you might guess, comes next, that you start to get it more evenly distributed. Okay, let's just squash that down so that we try and squash these samples down equally. That will be a possible point of inaccuracy. It's very difficult to do that with certainty that you've got your samples equally squashed down. I'm going to put the probe into the depth of the container. I think that's probably the easiest because saves having to pile up some sand in the middle there. 5% water content. Are we reading anything? Yeah, we're now reading 125k. That's 125 kilo ohms. Okay, so you can see that the sand is now conducting electricity. It's down about 110 now. Okay, as I say, if we leave it long enough, it will stabilise. But we're only looking at rough ideas at the moment, so that's all we need. Okay, we'll add another 31 grams of water there, and that will make it up to 10%. Okay. Stir that in again. There is a method in this madness because you'll hopefully see at some point how the value stops changing when the sand becomes saturated. I'm expecting that's what will happen. I don't know if it will because, as I say, we're doing these tests live. So your guess is as good as mine at the moment. Whoops, oh dear. I'm going to be in trouble again for making a mess in the kitchen. Good job the wife's out at the moment. We can only do these things when the wife's out, really. Let's just try that. Oh, it's trying to switch between different ranges there on the meter. It might settle down. Okay, let's just fix the range. See if we can get a reading. 19 kilo ohms now. So we've gone from 110 to 19. 21 now. I'll change that to 21. As I say, we're only interested in very rough figures. There's no great precision in this test, but it will give us a rough idea. Okay, so another 31 grams of water will take us to 15%. Okay, just stir that in. I'm going to skip the next 5% and go straight to 25. Just squash that down again. Okay, let's just measure that. $14.3 this time. On 15%. Less of a change actually. I'm going to just go backtrack on what I said. I'm going to go to 20% after all, so that's another 31 grams, because we didn't get much of a change on that. And as I say, I'm doing this for my interest as much as anything else. I would just say, if you don't understand the concept of electrical resistance and the idea that that's how your moisture meter works, you should probably, as I've already said, throw it in the bin and stay in your office where you can do a bit less damage. I might have to backtrack slightly. It may be that we find when we start looking at how sand samples behave in hot weather, it may be that the moisture meter has a use then. I doubt it, but you know, we'll see when we do the tests. Okay, that's 20% water content now. Just squash that down. Pop that in. 11.5k now at 20%. It's probably varying a bit. Fairly stable. Say 11 kilo ohms there. Let's do 25%. Okay. Another good mix. You can see now the sand is getting visibly wet. Don't forget this 25% value is saturation point of sand. Now I think that's quite significant, because I think when the sand is saturated you have water in the gap between every sand particle, so you're probably reaching a point of maximum conduction of your sand to electricity. The more water you add from now on, the less difference it will make, because you're getting in effect a direct contact between your moisture meter probes, regardless of the amount of water you add extra. So reading 2.3 thousand ohms at 25%. Now if my theory is correct, if we go up to 30% we should find a very similar reading. Okay. Once again, just to re-emphasize how differently the sand behaves when you start adding levels of water that allow the sand particles to drift apart. The surface tension is no longer holding those sand particles together. They've moved apart from each other, or at least they're starting to. So the sand is now behaving absolutely differently. But then you don't really need a moisture meter to tell you that. I don't have to squash that down now. I can compact it just by doing that. Let's get a reading. Just let that stabilize. Okay, we're looking about the 1.2 kilo ohm area there. Okay, 1.4 maybe. Probably this is going to be the last time, because we're going up to 35% water. Okay. Nice and sloppy sand there. Very similar reading by the look of it, maybe a bit higher surprisingly. That's probably because of the effect of the electrodes. As I say, you get a chemical reaction when you put them in. It's about 2K, okay. I think that illustrates just how inaccurate your moisture meter is going to be. You could argue you don't need a moisture meter at this level because you can see there's water on the track. The point really is, however much more water I add to this, it won't change the readings on the meter. Now, one last thing, you'll be glad to know, I'm just going to go back to my original 25% sample of sand. It's got 25% of water already added to it. So again, we just squash that down nicely. And we'll get our resistance meter reading off that and see what that says. Just let that stabilise for a minute. So about 5.7K then. Okay. Let's add salt then. We're going to add 2% salt initially. And we'll stir that in and hopefully get it dissolved into the sand. Let's just pop that on there instead. It's only 2%, so the other videos have shown that you need to add 5% salt to give protection against freezing down to -1.5 degrees C. So, you know, not an enormous amount of salt here. The problem with adding a small amount of salt, again, a bit like adding a small amount of water, is actually getting it mixed in thoroughly. Now let's have a go at that. Just compact that down now. Okay, let's pop the probe in there and see what difference that makes. That's dropped down to about 2.1K, 2.6, climbing still. 3.7 say. Okay. Let's add another 2% salt to that. Okay, stir that in. That makes 4%, still less than the 5% you would typically want to be using on your track. Stir that in well. Just compact down, most of that's ended up on the table. Okay, pop the probe in that. 0.6K now, at 4% salt. Started with no salt in it at 5.7 thousand ohms. It's now, well, it's crept up a bit, 0.9 thousand ohms, 1,000 ohms now. A huge difference. That's going to be interpreted by your moisture meter as a difference in water content. Just demonstrate that one more time with some, I'll just get some fresh water. We'll just take the reading of that. Just demonstrating on plain water, just for the fun of it really, in case anyone has misunderstood how unreliable these things are. Okay, we've got our reading there. I think that's 5K. 4.6. Let's just tip some salt in. Give it a stir. Okay, not all the salt is dissolved yet. Does it read the same as it did? Oh, sorry. 2.3. What did it read first time?
4 point.
I forgot what it was. Have you stopped the video?